to the families of the 270 victims of Lockerbie. Assurances had been given by the Libyan government that any return would be dealt with in a low-key and sensitive fashion. Advance notice of my decisions was given to the UK and US governments so that they could seek similar assurances. However, my decision was made following due process and according to the law of Scotland. I stand by the values and laws of Scotland.
And here he tries to excuse his action by saying that the terrorist was going to die anyway.
Scotland will forever remember the crime that has been perpetrated against our people and those from many other lands. The pain and suffering, as I said, will remain forever. Some hurt can never heal. Some scars can never fade. Those who have been bereaved cannot be expected to forget, let alone forgive. But as I said, Mr al-Megrahi now faces a sentence imposed by a higher power. It is one that no court in any jurisdiction, in any land, could revoke or overrule. It is terminal, final and irrevocable. He is going to die.
But you've missed the point, McCaskill. God will impose his judgment either way.
Yes, that decision. It is a devolved matter. It's a matter for the Scottish Government. They've taken their decision, and that is the end of the matter.
You have lost sight of the values of your nation. The values of your country demand justice, not appeasement. At least that's what the British Conservative leader David Cameron thinks.
Well, I think this is wrong, and it's the product of some completely nonsensical thinking, in my view. If there's a view that the conviction is in some way unsafe, then the proper process is an appeal and the presentation of new evidence. But if this is about genuine release on compassionate grounds, I think it is wrong. This man was convicted of murdering 270 people. He showed no compassion to them. They weren't allowed to go home and die with their relatives in their own bed. And I think this is a very bad decision.
That's exactly what I've said. At least there are a few sane people left in England. It seems that the issue of race and race relations has been heating up in our nation instead of getting better. As the great conciliator, the great bringer together, the great young man filled with hope said he would do. It seems that the hope was all hype. And it seems that the much-heralded beer summit between the cop and the prof didn't really accomplish anything. It's gotten worse. Joining us now with his view on this is Selwyn Duke.
Hi, Michael. Good to be with you again. Michael, today I want to talk about that story that was washed away with the White House beer, the Henry Louis Gates affair. Now, while Barack Obama took a lot of heat over how he handled it, you know what? I agree with our post-racial president on one thing, when he said that the affair was a teachable moment. And I want to talk about what should be learned. Now, we all know about the Gates story, about how Gates unjustly accused Sergeant James Crowley of racism simply because Crowley was doing his job. But there's a lot more to say about the story. You see, I didn't need the Gates affair to understand Gates and Obama's nature. I knew right away that Gates was yet another one of the president's many, many bigoted men. And I knew that Obama was cut from the same stone. And really, I knew this even before hearing about Obama's most notorious bigoted man, Reverend Jeremiah Wright. And I knew it for a simple reason. You see, the hard, cold truth is that bigotry is the norm among politically liberal black people. Now, many will say, no doubt, that I'm prejudiced for making this generalization, but understand something. Prejudice refers to an unfavorable opinion about a group that has no basis in reality. So, I guess now we have to see if my assertion has this basis. I'll start like this. If you've ever seen the movie Boys in the Hood, you might remember the father character giving a motivational speech about how white people purposely put alcohol in gun stores in South Central LA to kill off blacks. And mind you, this character is portrayed as a voice of reason in the film. Now, this is Hollywood, but it's also art imitating life. It reflects a paranoia that makes large numbers of black people believe that AIDS was created by whites to wipe out blacks. And this paranoia causes many other problems also. For instance, you might remember that story about a public official who had to resign his position because then there's the story of Illinoisan David Gonzalez. He lost his job simply because black co-workers didn't like the fact that he was wearing a symbol of his heritage, a Scottish clan badge. And it didn't matter that it had nothing to do with the KKK.
And the best example is Professor Gates, who was just sure that Sergeant Crowley was a racist police officer.
Yeah, he's a great example, Michael. Well, let's talk about one reason. We've all seen people prejudiced against an individual. It might have been a mother-in-law who just couldn't stand her son's wife, or a person who, after years of marital conflict, was fatally biased against his spouse. And when you hate someone less, and then his trespasses are never innocent mistakes, are they? No. They're the result of evil motives. The thinking is, that's just the kind of thing that scum of the earth would do. And it's no different with politically liberal blacks. Professor Gates, AIDS conspiracy theorists are just sure that those who offended them are bigoted because, well, that's just what white people do.
Well, also the demonization of whites is part of leftist dogma. Don't you remember red diaper doper baby feminist Susan Sontag telling people, quote, that the white race is the cancer of human history 40 years ago? Susan Sontag, an icon of the left, telling people that the white race is the cancer of human history.
For sure, Michael. Heck, I just recently saw a man online who said that he was ashamed to be white. That's what he said. But this raises an important point. If leftist whites feel this anti-white loathing out of a sense of being oppressors, then how much more do leftist blacks, who view themselves as the oppressed, feel it? Well, you know what? They feel it enough so that another one of the president's bigoted men, Reverend Joseph Lowery, was allowed to pray for a day, quote, when white will embrace what is right, unquote, during Obama's inauguration. Now, next, let's talk about that old political observation about how blacks are actually quite conservative culturally. We saw this just last November when a higher percentage of blacks than whites voted for California's Proposition 8. But now we have to ask, why would such a group vote Democrat 95% of the time? Well, the answer is race. The answer is the idea in the black community that the Republicans are the white party. Look, the fact is that politically liberal blacks are consumed by race. They live and die with it. They eat it and breathe it. For example, consider how black women sometimes say to young black boys, "You're going to grow up to be a strong young black man." Now, this isn't designed simply to reassure the lads that they're not going to end up like Michael Jackson. There's another reason. You see, everyone tends to define some particular status as central to his being. Now, this status should be child of God, but it's usually something else. It could be the identity of father or mother, or it could be policeman, doctor, or athlete. But it could also have to do with one's group. And in the case of politically liberal blacks, they identify so closely with their race that there simply isn't much separation between them and it. And this is why Congressman Sheila Jackson Lee once said during a House discussion, listen to this, quote, "I came here as a slave. I now want the right to vote."
She said she came here as a slave? Is the woman 175 years old?
No, Michael, but her attitude isn't unusual. Listen, it's like the time a black student framed an argument by saying to me, quote, "There was a time when you and I couldn't drink out of the same water fountain." Well, guess what? This kid was about 16 years old. Now, it's not that these folks had a Shirley MacLaine vision of a past life, I can assure you. It's that group identification. In their minds, I am the group. The group is me. Anything that has happened to the group has happened to me, and any characterization of the group is a characterization of me. And this is, by the way, one reason why people who group identify can't tolerate any criticism of their group. Their self-image is so intertwined with the image of the group that anything diminishing the group diminishes them in their own eyes. And this is why such people will jump through hoops to rationalize away unflattering facts about their groups. And it sheds light on why Obama can say that blacks get stopped by law enforcement disproportionately while ignoring the reason for it. They commit crimes disproportionately. You see, the black person who has amalgamated group and self can't acknowledge this fact because, in his mind, it would be tantamount to saying that he was criminally inclined. It would make him feel like less as a person. Now, of course, this is a hang-up, and there's a funny thing about hang-ups. We usually don't recognize our hang-ups as hang-ups, do we? We don't realize that our hang-ups are just that, things that seem all important